All right, Caitlin, we're some two sniffly girls today. I
We
think
sure are. Oh man,
we're
it's been
yeah.
a journey.
It's been
Tis
a
the
head cold
season.
journey. Tis the season, as it were. Well, I have a fun fact for you today, like I
Good. I need
do.
some fun. Bring it. Let's
Yeah,
see it.
absolutely. Okay, so um none of you would know this because why would you? But I recently over Christmas invested in a sewing machine because it sounded fun. And I have been fascinated by it. I am amazed by what my like $300 sewing machine can do. I'm baffled. I'm impressed. And then it got me thinking, like, holy shit, how just thinking about how people used to do all this by hand when sewing machines are so goddamn fast, like really just started like blowing my mind. Honestly,
It's
getting a
pretty
sewing machine made
bonkers.
me more of a feminist because I'm like, sewing reminds me like sewing reminds me of the processes of engineering a lot. Like you're like measuring things, you're thinking about the materials, you have to have like a
There's
decent
so
understanding of the
much.
machine you're using. You have to know how to like
Yeah.
fix it. You have to know how to upkeep it. I was like, people being like sewing's women's work, and I'm like, sewing's fucking cool. Anyways, so then I got interested. I was
Hard
like,
women's work.
yeah, truly. I was like, man, no wonder everyone had like one shirt for a long time. I'm exaggerating. I don't
For
know
their
the
whole
historical
life.
context of how many shirts people had, but like, yeah, no wonder people weren't just like rolling in, having an outfit of the day all the time. Like,
Rolling
take
in
so long
dresses.
rolling in dresses. Yeah, I'm like thinking about how like beautiful and complicated some fashion was, and how like I'm like, how the fuck did they do that without a sewing machine? It must have taken forever. Which
Yeah.
it
A
did,
really
I'm sure.
underrated skill for
Okay,
sure.
yeah. So Caitlin, when do you think the first successful sewing machine was like invented and commercially available?
I'm gonna guess like the 1800s, and I can't remember like how they would have powered it, but
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. That's we're not going that far. But yeah, okay. 1830. First
oh
successful
hell
sewing
yeah.
machine. Nice work. Okay. And but my favorite part of this is so a French tailor named Barthélemy Thimonier, which I feel pretty confident about how I pronounce that actually. It probably sounds nicer with the like proper French accent and without moderate head cold congestion, but alas, I'm American, so fuck
I
off.
think the head
Uh,
cold actually helps with pronunciation.
Bartholomew Simonier. Yeah, but anyways, he was like, wow, hand sewing sucks shit. I'm gonna invent a machine. And then he finally opened his own factory where people were using his machines and to make uniforms for French soldiers. And people that were worried that the sewing machine was gonna take their jobs burnt that shit down. They burnt
Oh
his
my
factory
god.
down while he was still inside it. Um,
While he was inside it?
yeah,
Oh,
dog, he like almost died for his invention. And I just think about that and I was like, this feels a little short sighted because like I can't imagine doing hand sewing and then someone being like, there's this cool machine that's gonna like make your job way faster. And then people were like, I get it. I get it. I feel like also this is like an interesting allegory for AI right now, but like, I don't know. I'm not an economist,
ha-
so like we're
have I
not doing
ever
that debate here. But like, yeah, like, but I do think it's interesting because if I was hand sewing stuff and someone was like, "This will suck less," I invented a thing, I'd be like, lit.
great,
I
sign
will
me
learn
up.
how to use it first,
Like
especially because the guy that invented it was a tailor. So you'd think he would maybe be like a homie
he would
about it,
kind
but
of
I don't
be
know.
aware. Well, it's
Yeah,
kind of like if someone invented someone to cook for me, I'd be pretty stoked about that.
yeah. Or like if
A
someone
cooking butler.
invented a software, I guess like if we're making a climbing coach analogy, if someone invented a software where I could like speak aloud the vibes of what I wanted in like my client's program and then it like did a lot of the like tedious shit for me and then I could just like go in and review it. I'm sure it kind of exists but
Yeah.
not in the way that I want it to and not in a way that I would like trust. Um
Yeah, like I keep experimenting with ChatGPT to see like, okay, where are we at with like
what can I get you to do?
support?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm always curious, like with how AI is going, it's obviously going to be integrated in, I think, a big part of like the medical system. They're integrating it in different ways, and they're using it a lot for like note taking.
That's what I was
But
thinking, because I was like literally
yeah,
sitting down to like, I should probably just use this, but I was like sitting down to like type out client notes from client calls. And I was like,
yeah, it makes
and
it
the
a little easier, I'm sure.
yeah, I'm
But
like, the
I'm always
purpose
like,
of, yeah,
like the nutrition forward support, I'm always like, yeah, that could be helpful. But like, depending on what you input, you're going to get what it gives you. Like, if I
yeah.
ask it super specifically with like a certain tone in mind, that's what it's going to give me. But if it's like, if you put something in that's like, I want to do this crazy thing in 30 days, tell me what to do, chat GPT like may not be as like
It'll be like,
cautious.
okay, you now only have ice cubes and cheese cubes. You're on the cube diet. That's it. Yeah. Anyway,
Literally.
this is not,
Anyway,
we are not AI expert, and I'm definitely not a sewing expert. Some of my stitches, throwing around stuff with a curve. Anyways, it looks like a drunk person did it.
I get
So,
it.
anywho, hello. You're listening to the Average Climber podcast. We are not here to debate the morality or effectiveness of AI. We're here to do something else today. I'm Lauren. I am a certified personal trainer and climbing coach. I'm here with my dear friend Caitlin.
I'm Caitlin. I'm a certified nutrition specialist. And Lauren, if you're watching this, anybody, I really like your sweater today.
Oh, thank you. I call it
You're such
my
a star.
stardigan. It's because I'm standing up because it's stars, but it's also a
Excellent.
cardigan. And I wear this when I'm going to create magic, which is what we're gonna fucking do
Today.
today. Magic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Today we actually have a really cool topic today, and we've started with talking about energy leaks, and one of the big ones that we kind of wanted to come out hot with for the second in our season is psychological energy leaks. So kind of like
Yeah.
answering the question of why your mind is tiring your body. So we have a couple things we want you to really get from this episode. And I really think we're like so excited to talk about it. That's why we put it at almost like the very tippity top
Yeah.
of this deck.
It's funny that we're like, this is like one of the top episodes we wanted to start with, because this one's like really important if you're someone that's like, I don't want to think about my feelings, I just care about push-ups. Do not fucking skip this episode. This is for you. Are you fucking kidding me?
This is for you.
But like, this was the one, like, in our recording order, we actually didn't like, this was not like one of the first that we recorded, because we were like, we need to like dig deep. And we were like, I would say, I was like, I am the most, not nervous, but I was like, I am the most concerned and like
Yeah,
want to make sure that we like do this well. So this is one that we like made sure to like take some time with to like mull over. But I'm very excited about it because I think this is like just so important. And I think this might be like, this might be mind blowing to you. I don't want to like skip ahead, but I think like
yeah.
I
You
think
might
you
be
might be like,
surprised.
oh, like in a more material way about certain mental things going on with you and how it impacts you,
Yeah,
like, than you have been before, which I'm stoked about.
for
So,
sure. Yeah,
Caitlin, as
we
you were
got some cool
saying, the outcome goals that we have for you in this
Yes, yeah.
episode.
So we have two main things we want you to walk away knowing or feeling or whatever. We really want you to know what your psychological leaks are and why you're feeling tired from them. And we also want you to have the tools to plug those leaks that don't necessarily require more discipline. Because I think the biggest thing that comes out of researching, like if you've ever looked up like, okay, I'm stressed, what do, like a big thing that is talked about is like, okay, here are the coping strategies or skills or things you can do, but a lot of those can feel like somewhat
Another thing that you're
time
going to be
eating.
ashamed
Yeah,
about not doing. Yeah.
yeah, another thing to add to your list, another thing to have discipline about, and that itself can feel a bit like a leak because you're probably really busy and you might feel really hard on yourself if quote, don't have the discipline to get it done. So, like, that's kind of how I feel about meditation sometimes, because I'm like, I know I feel really good when I do it, when I'm disciplined, but we don't want you to walk away from this episode feeling like that. So,
Yeah, like we want you to pick like our main goal, like there's probably multiple of these going
yeah,
on, I would guess, cuz you're a human being. But our goal is for you to just like pick one thing and be like I'm working on this, and I'm going to give some like tangible examples throughout
yep,
of how I like literally do this with clients depending on like what psychological energy leak we identify. So I think that will be helpful to hear, like, and it does work. Like if you pick a
yeah,
thing and actually pick a thing that feels approachable and actually stick with it, it does work. So that's what we will say.
yes.
Okay, so buckle up, buttercup,
Buckle up.
we're doing it. Okay,
Okay.
let me so actually first thing I want to talk about, because this is like one thing when I'm discussing with clients, is like when they're like, sometimes I want to skip a training session, and I'm like, how dare you, you lazy fuck. Just kidding, I never would say that. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
never have you ever.
Never, literally would never say that. I would say it as a joke. So usually one thing I want a client to identify is if they're like feeling some resistance toward getting their training done or whatever it may be. Usually I try to like have them figure it out. Is it like, am I physically tired? Like, am I sore? Am I hungry? Am I whatever? That's kind of like physical energy links. We're going to get that into that in the next episode. Or is it more like on the mentally tired? Did I like have to focus a lot today at work and now I cannot focus anymore? Did I have to use all of my to use the technical terms, did I use all of my fucks on other stuff and now I have no emotional fucks left to give for my climbing session, right?
Great,
Like is,
great
and sometimes
question.
it'll be both. Sometimes like physical exhaustion can beget mental and like emotional exhaustion, but that's like a thing that you got to figure out. So sometimes, yeah, you might show up to a session like physically you're like, I've had 3 rest days in a row, but mentally you're like checked the fuck out or like feeling very resistant to doing the thing. So
Yeah.
you're normal. If that's you, congrats.
We're normies. Well,
Yay.
Lauren, I kind of wanted to like start us out by asking a question, because I think something that it's like really obvious, right? When we're like physically exhausted, but have you ever shown up to a session feeling like pretty physically fine? We're going to say fine, period, but
Yeah.
already tired? Like, has this happened to you?
Yes. And I personally have started, yeah. And I've started, especially as a gal pal with ADHD, like when I say what I use jokingly use the phrase like fucks, or like all of my focus has been used up. I've totally had it where I've had like days where I just have like a work day that takes basically all of my like self regulation, pay attention tokens. And then I get to the
Yeah.
gym and I'm like, I've had 2 rest days in a row and I feel so tired, even though, and like my cortisol is at like, my stress level feels like my stress level has made my, you know, when your watch sends you like those little bitchy little
It's like, are
notifications
you okay?
that, or like you've done nothing that anyone would officially consider to be exercise, but your heart rate's just been like elevated all day because of
Yeah.
whatever. And then your watch is like, hey, you've had a stressful day and your heart rate's been like really high despite the fact that you've been like sitting or standing in a desk all day. And you're like,
And you're like, no.
no way. And then you get to the gym and you're like, it's so weird how I don't feel like I have any energy to like care about beta on a boulder problem. Like, yeah, I've totally had those days. And I've started to
Totally.
be able to, we'll get to that later, but I've started to be able to like almost think about how I'm pairing my training with my type of work day to like make that suck less. So,
Yeah. Well, I remember something that Chris Hampton told us both. He said that if he has like a really like mentally taxing day at work, he has to do something like creative for fitness, and then like vice versa. And so if he's like doing something really creative at work, he needs something that's like really, really focused and kind of like a whole different
oh,
vibe for
wow.
workouts.
Yeah.
And I'm
Huh.
like, wow.
That's
the
not how
king
my
of
brain works, but, like, yeah, that
yeah,
makes
the
sense.
king of balance. I don't know what that's like. I'm certainly not a king
Yeah.
of that, but
No.
yeah,
No.
I feel
Yeah,
like
what about you? Have you had a day is
yeah.
there, like, a day in memory where you're like, "That was
This
comically
week,
rough?"
literally this week.
Couldn't
Like,
have been the
okay,
head cold.
let me just like paint a picture for you. So we got our carpets ripped up, thank the Lord. Um
It
and
looks
we got
very
them.
good. I've seen the
Oh, it's
pictures. I'm thrilled
such a
about
glow
it.
up.
You know you're
I'm
an
so
adult when you're, like, high-fiving your friend over the internet over, like, a new
yeah.
flooring install. You're
New
like,
floor.
"Yeah!" Yeah, you're
Yeah.
like,
Oh
"Hell
my
yeah!"
god.
Like, it's like the
Oh,
Super Bowl of adulthout for a house
truly.
project to get finished. It's, like, thrilling.
Yes. It's so thrilling, but like this whole week, like I felt like pretty good until I got sick, but I like hearing the like bang bangs all day, all of the dust in my house, just like being like with other people here. Like I went to try and work out on Tuesday and I was just like, I I like can't even like I even put on like a training video. I couldn't even follow it. I was just like, no, this is bad. And granted, I did get sick, so like who knows what was going on there. But yeah, I've had those moments where I'll like show up and feel physically like I'm ready to take on the day. Like I slept okay, I've been eating well, but my brain is just like la la la.
La, la,
Can't
la. Yeah. No,
hang.
I mean, I think that makes sense to me. If you've been like if basically it's like if your normal environment has been turned to like a level 12 out of 10 distracting and you're like,
Yeah.
I'm ignoring the banging. I'm ignoring the fact that some stranger might insert contractor here might come up to me and like ask me a question at literally any moment and I'm
Yeah.
distracted by that constantly while also trying to work, doing that all day and then like trying to like be like, hope I have a focus token left. It turns out no.
I
So
didn't.
yeah.
Nope. Focus tokens were spent on like
Yep.
actual work and not
Yep.
physical. But I think yeah, this is like a energy is something I think we're always like it's energy for muscles and my fitness level, but it's also about availability of energy and like what you have to give mentally and physically. But the psychological stress, if it's like background noise all day, can just quietly tax your body all day long. So then you don't have
Yeah.
those focus tokens for later.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. And like climbing, not to like say other sports don't require focus, but like I always use running as an example. Like, not that running doesn't require like mental fortitude and focus, especially if you're like doing an interval
yeah.
workout or like something that just like, there's something to be said about just being like, I have to keep going for a long time. But
Yeah.
it's also different than having the
Yeah.
energy and like focus available to
More
like
like
be a creative
mindless.
problem solver. Yeah, like you can have
Yeah.
certain like yeah, I just think it's like different. I think climbing is a sport, especially if you're trying to like actually practice skills or like be focused on how your body is moving or
Yeah.
like learn a new complex movement. I think like it just
Well,
takes a good bit of focus.
yeah. When I was studying for my board exams, oh my God, I went from like being able to climb like pretty hard to not even being able to like work through anything. My brain was just so fried. I That time was so bizarre too because it was also the pandemic and I just remember being like why no work? Why body not do thing that train? And it was
Okay,
just yeah, it was crazy.
yeah. Okay. So speaking of this, I read some studies over the weekend that I just felt because I've
Mm,
like seen it play out and I've like experienced it, but it was like a whole new level to kind of like review some research that
totally.
backs this feeling up in a like material way. So the first one I'm going to talk about, I have two, and don't worry, this isn't going to be like a long diatribe where I read you the abstract word for word,
Yeah.
people. Sometimes people are like, oh no, a research paper turning this podcast off. Don't worry, these are actually interesting. I skipped over the boring ones. So the first one is titled Negative Emotional State Slows Down Movement Speed, Behavioral and Neural Evidence.
Ooh.
Really interesting. So, okay. Basically, the way that they conducted this research is they I'm going to way oversimplify this because I don't think we need to go into like all the nitty
No,
gritty
no. Yeah.
neuroscience details. But okay, so basically, they hooked people's brains, they hooked people's heads up to like a monitor of brain waves to keep it very simple. And then they had people look at either a neutral or negative picture before executing tasks on a keyboard. There was a statistically significant difference in how fast they executed the task after they saw a negative image versus when they saw a neutral image. So,
Huh.
and what they're basically like hypothesizing here is that because it takes mental energy to be like processing a negative image, that is, and this is supported by like the brainwave observations that they
Mhm.
made as well, that is why it took people longer to do the keyboard task, essentially.
Wow.
So
Like
yeah,
pretty
and this was
quickly affecting that
yeah.
process. That's
Yeah.
wild.
And obviously this isn't like a sports centered movement task,
Sure.
so that's different. But in some of the like studies that they cited in the introduction, they have done studies like relating that like if you experience negative emotions and then try to run fast, or if you experience negative emotions like if you're in a negative emotional state, you won't throw the ball as far. Like they cited a couple of those, so I will like
Hmm.
link to those below as well. But the one caveat I want to point out is like basically they had like a division of emotional states, right? So it's like we have our negative emotional states, which would be like feeling like down, depressed, sad, stressed, like that type of thing.
Yeah.
Whereas, and like evolutionarily, they kind of posit that this makes sense because like you're not likely to move as fast towards something if you are feeling this type of way. You're more like prone to like avoidant type behaviors. Whereas with either anger or positive emotional states, you might be more like aroused to move towards something. So, anger, while we would likely categorize that like as a negative emotion, that they didn't put any like images that would have made them angry because anger can like make you move
Hmm.
faster, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So I
Yeah.
thought that was really interesting. But it does feel cool that there's like a reasonable body of research demonstrating that like your emotional state can impact your movement speed and also your ability to control your movement
Mm.
speed as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And like pretty rapidly. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
bad
So,
day, maybe bad session.
right.
That's
Like
fascinating.
straight up. So, thought that was really interesting. So, that was research paper number 1. The second one that like honestly knocked my fucking socks off. Okay, are you ready? So, this one is titled Exploring the Impact of Psychological Capital and Work, Family Conflict on Stress Regulation and Success in Competitive Athletes. This one
Ooh.
was crazy to me. And like it'll sound obvious, but like when you really think about it, like bonkers. So basically, what they did was they took like a pretty large group of athletes. Let me find it. It was in the like hundreds of athletes. And these were athletes at a professional level. And the way they categorized like professionals, if you were competing like at the pro level, either on a national or international scale. And they did it across a bunch of different sports. There were like team sports like football, basketball, I believe. And then there were, I can look at it. Hold on. Let me find it. Where did I put it? We can edit some of this. Okay. Me. Where did it go? I feel bad. God damn it. Oh well. There was a mix of team sports and then also like individual sports, such as like gymnastics, wrestling, things like that. So they like a really solid mix of types of like pro level sports. All right. So then what they did was they divided this like pool of athletes into 2 groups: winners and less than winners, I'm just going to say. So basically, winners were categorized as people that had won at an either national or international level in like the top 3 places, and the less than winners were people that had like competed and gotten like 4th place or less. So then they took all these people and they gave them like a big gigantic survey to evaluate a few things. They were evaluating their resilience, their self efficacy, their optimism, their hope, and their level of work family conflict. And so they're pro athletes, right? So it's like the conflict they're feeling between their like life as a pro athlete and like their family. Okay, so they
Okay.
like evaluated basic and also their perceived stress levels was the other one. Okay, so this survey, because I'm always like, a survey, it's just a survey, like self reported, not that it can't be good, but like self reported stuff, sometimes like you have to
It's
take with
very
a grain of
subjective.
salt.
Yeah.
Yeah, it can be like kind
Mhm.
of subjective. And obviously, all of these like facets that we're trying to measure are like subjective, right?
For sure.
But this survey that was issued to like these, hundreds of people, it was reviewed by like a group of 10 experts. So there were like multiple PhD level, like sports psychologists. There were like coaches with master's degrees. Like 10 people reviewed this. And the list of people that were looking at it, I was like, holy shit. Okay, well, if 10 whole people like dove in to
I
try to
mean,
make this like as
yeah.
good of a survey as possible, I think
Yeah. They can
that
like
sounds nice.
adjust for bias and confounding factors in surveys like pretty decently. Well, especially like
Right.
depending on the question they're asking. So yeah. Yeah.
Right.
What
I
did
was like,
they yeah.
okay, so this is what they found. All right. The winners, statistically significant difference in everything. The winners reported more indicators of resilience, more self efficacy, more optimism, more hope, and they had a like better work life balance, essentially, that like work family
Whoa.
conflict. The only thing that wasn't necessarily a predictor was the perceived stress level. But like, can we just like have a moment that like everyone that was winning was more resilient, had better like work life boundaries, had more optimism and more hope across all these sports?
Yeah, that's
Like that's fucking
crazy.
crazy. Like that,
Yeah.
like they're not controlling for like anything physical. They are controlling for like mental and emotional and like
Mental
work life balance
perception.
factors,
Yeah. That's pretty wild.
right? Like
Yeah.
bonkers.
I mean, the mind
Um
is so powerful and like yeah, that's a really good example of that.
yeah, I was like, that's nuts. So I also thought the stress was interesting, and like this is me giving my own opinion. This is not the opinion like posited in the thing, but I kind of think like if you're gonna be an athlete at that high of a level, like I think you deal like you recognize that like stress and like competitive stress and all of that is like part of your life. And I also think stress
Right.
isn't necessary, like to me stress isn't necessarily an indicator that like something is like super wrong always, because like they talk in the paper about how there's like good stress and bad stress. So I think like if you're an
Right.
athlete at this level, like even if you, it's almost like you're like, yes, I am stressed out, but like that's like part of it. And I think
It's
like maybe
different.
that's just
Yeah.
like obviously it's relevant, but I think work family stress seems
That's
that makes more
different
sense to me
than
than like your
yeah.
overall how much stress you're under. So anyway, thought that was super interesting. Kind of had my mind blown because sometimes I'm like,
Yeah.
as I coach people and I'm, I coach recreational athletes. So I'm like, I don't think personally it makes sense for us to like degrade your mental health substantially in pursuit of like non-professional athletic goals. And I also kind
Right.
of don't think it makes sense to like do that even for soup. Like I just don't think there's any reason, like mental illness is illness to some degree. I don't know. I just think there's when
Yeah.
there's
There's a lot
ways
of
to
complexity.
promote mental health while you do sports, and also obviously this paper and many other bodies of literature demonstrate that like doing stuff that helps promote your like confidence, self, like all the things is
Yeah.
good for you as a person and as an athlete. It just
Well,
doesn't make sense to me to like not pursue both at the same time.
for sure. I mean this reminds me of just I'll like very briefly mention this paper and we can link it too, but it was a study that talked about or it compared like athletes who are individual athletes, this would be like climbers or like gymnasts or ice skaters
Yeah.
or whatever versus like combat sports versus like team based sports. And they found that athletes in those individualized sports could really benefit from training mindfulness specifically. So, like being aware of how you're feeling, understanding like listening to your body, listening to your mind, like really checking in with yourself and how that mindfulness can help support that resilience in your sport and your life too. So yeah,
Yeah.
I really feel like, I mean, this is like the basis of why we want to talk about this, because I really do think there's a misunderstanding of these like psychological leaks, but also there's like this pressure in our, maybe not in our sport necessarily, but within ourselves in our sport to do better, when maybe there are days and reasons and explanations why we might feel like more tired and like we might take it out on ourselves. But if we can really understand and have that mental awareness of what else is going on, I think that can help us reframe it a bit and help us
Right.
do fun things again.
Exactly. And like this is not me saying that like if you're okay, so like I am not saying that if you're like in a bad mood or you're just like not feeling doing your training session that you should just go with that part of yourself all the time. That is
Right.
not what we are saying. What we are saying is that if you can learn certain like self-regulation skills, learn ways to be resilient, learn ways to like really develop your intuition around like, am I resisting this session because what I really need is a rest day? Or am I resisting this session because there's like some pieces of
External.
friction that I can like
Yeah.
resolve or like some internal thought processes that aren't very helpful? Then I can still get the session done. Right. So it's like, it's kind of like some like high level, like how to push yourself in a mindful, sustainable way. And you
Yeah.
are the only one that can know if you're like pushing the balance too far one way or the other. And some people are going to tend towards like pushing themselves too much and creating a problem. And some people will err on the side of like being overly cautious or like
Yeah.
overly amenable to the part of themselves that like wants to chill the fuck out and not do anything. And so you got to know that about yourself and you got to be able to like do that for you. And like me and Caitlin are not going to be able to tell you if you're underdoing
Right.
it or overdoing it. That's going to be a thing that you need to like develop within yourself. But that is part of what we are going to be helping you figure out
Yeah.
today. So, okay, Caitlin, let's switch gears a little bit. So there's some research, hopefully that knocked your socks off as much as it like blew my mind. I was like, this is so cool. It basically was just
Yeah.
like, to me, it felt like work-life balance and like your inner peace actually really does matter in terms of your athletic
Yeah.
performance. And I thought that was fucking cool. But Caitlin, why don't you talk to us a little bit? Earlier in the episode, you mentioned that like your mind could be making your body tired. And I was like, say more about that. So can you like tell us how and why that happens?
Yeah. Yeah. So, really briefly, I wanted to kind of like reframe what energy actually is. Cause I think like we've probably all heard like energy in, energy out. That's the balance that you strike, which is like, simplified truth. But I also think we forget that energy is like an amalgamation of the fuel you're taking in. It's also like regulation in your body, not only like, the autonomic regulation of your mind, but also like the processes that are happening in your body that are regulating in the background to keep you energized. And then also your mental focus too. So the reality is that like your psychological stressors, whether they're, like really mentally taxing or even just like a teeny bit like, oh, I'm stressed, that does increase the metabolic demand in your body. So that means that how many carbs you're using, that means what your cortisol output is. That might also mean like how tense your muscles are, because that mental effort does have a physiological cost. So like if you think of it like phone apps in running in the background and like draining your energy. Like, I found like, oh my God, my phone battery is dying so fast the last few days. And it's because I have like 8,000 of my apps up trying to like do different research this week. And so this is like kind of what's happening in your mind. Like you have this background psychological stress noise. You don't necessarily see it. You're aware of it. You don't see it, but you can feel it. And that's happening to like take your energy and zap your mental energy and creating this physiological cost throughout your body.
Yeah. I okay, this is like a very specific example, but I'm curious if there's like I'm sure they've studied it, but who knows. So like let's say you're like a teen and you're going to go take like the ACT all morning.
Oh,
Are you literally like let's say you're like we have teen A that's like sitting in a desk all morning taking the ACT, and then we have like teen B that's given like I don't know unlimited unfettered access to like only very dumb dog videos on YouTube and
okay.
like a doodle book. Like
Yes.
is the one taking the ACT maybe going to like like technically if you look at their like caloric output, if we were somehow able to measure that, like do you think they might have like used more glucose, or like I'm sure it wouldn't be crazy
Y-
high, but like is that a
yeah. I
thing?
mean,
Like you literally might burn more calories if you're like sitting there doing something that
stressed.
engages your brain, or like stressed. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if you're physiologically psychologically stressed and that creates a physiological reaction, then yeah, you're probably burning more energy. And I I am sure there is tons of good data to support that.
I mean, it makes sense to me, right? Like if you're sitting there and like taking the ACT is like stressing you out, or you're having to like, whatever, it's
Yeah.
physiological response, and your heart's beating faster and like all the things versus
Yeah.
like your heart being like more relaxed, more
Right.
whatever. Like I imagine it has to be using more energy to do that. It might not be a crazy amount, but it is
Yeah.
like an impact.
Well, I think like biologically, it's just like the process of how your body is using that energy to actually like support your brain while it's like, trying to run at all angles. I think that that's probably what's happening. So, yeah, like I mean, it's also not to say that like teen A versus teen B would perform better in a sport later, but maybe. Like I think that psychological stress would affect people in different ways too. So like
Yeah.
even if I'm trying to think of like a good example, cuz like some people might get out of like let's say the ACT exam and then they go into like a sport later and they feel really good because that's over.
It's
It's like
like over, they feel like they did well, they
yeah, it's like a
perform well.
compartmentalization.
Yeah.
But,
You
like,
might
if
feel
you're really,
relieved.
really yeah, yeah. So, like, I think it's super subjective, but overall, if you're experiencing like, if you personally are perceiving your stress levels to be super high, you're super overwhelmed and really stressed, that is when I would say that this is, like, the physiological cost is happening in the background.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that makes a ton of sense. And I think we've all experienced this, and I mean like I
Yeah.
think
To
there's a
some degree,
reason.
right? Like,
Yeah.
no matter what. So I feel like it would be helpful to talk about the common psychological energy leaks, and there are 4 of them that I have here, and I think they probably won't be surprising. So,
Yeah. Let's do it.
I'm just going to list them out. So,
Okay.
the first one is certainly overthinking, rumination. This is like maybe where those like spirally thoughts will come in, but this is where I think of like replaying loops after a session. Maybe it's my cat jumping on my desk like he's right now doing, and I'm like, "Oh
Or
my god,
even like
overthinking."
replaying like a loop of like something shitty that happened at work over and over again as you're
Yeah,
trying to do your
done that
session.
before.
Yep.
Yeah. Like when I was posting a lot on Instagram, I would be like, shit, did I say the wrong thing? What if I like screwed up and I said this thing wrong? And like I would be like, was that good enough? That is such a huge energy tax. And that is like amplifying this cognitive load, which then, of course, increases your glucose demand. It keeps your nervous system in the on mode. And you might honestly just be like, God, why do I suck at the gym? I'm not doing anything. I should be able to do this. But it's like, ooh, that's a slippery
Yeah,
slope.
those loops are exhausting. Take it from a
Yeah.
rumination loop expert.
Yeah.
In
Yep.
terms of if you wanted to be really good at doing that, talk to me
Yeah. If you
and then
want to
lull with my
ruminate,
therapist. Yeah,
yeah,
we're
you can
working
join
on
in
it.
on a support group.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the next big one, which is tied to this, is that self criticism and shame loop. And this comes into, we had a really good talk with Dr. Laura Pence about this, maybe like a year or two ago now.
Yeah.
And she talked a lot about the shame loop, but this is like that negative self talk, which is also a stress signal in the body. It changes how you're breathing, it changes how your muscle is tensed. And I think also athletes can confuse like having harshness with discipline. So, like, this kind of comes into play with like, no excuses, don't be a pussy, just do it. And it's like,
Yeah.
well, I think for a lot of us, that may not actually work because I think self kindness and like self compassion is efficiency. It's not necessarily soft. It's like that shame that we might have can narrow our attention, it can waste our energy, and it can just like it can really amplify how much of our energy we're using and create that psychological leak.
This one I want to talk about super quick because as I was reading that paper about how like anger can be like motivating and effective,
Yeah, different, right?
different. I was okay. Welcome to me bringing up Zuko's character arc in Avatar: The Last Airbender. I just thought of this, but like, okay, so like, you know how if you haven't watched Avatar: The Last Airbender, the animated series
Go
yet, you
watch it
probably
now,
should.
pause this,
If
watch the
yeah,
whole
pause this,
series,
watch the
come
whole
back.
series, come back. Yeah, but if you haven't, I'm about to give you a spoiler. But like, this show's been out forever. This is your fault. This is your fault at this point. But like there's one part where like Uncle Iroh, Zuko's like mentor and becoming a better firebender, is like,
All
Zuko,
around great human.
great human. We love Uncle Iroh. But he's like, hey, you've gotten pretty good at firebending by just being like a ragey piece of shit. But like anger cannot be the only like way that you get yourself to do things. And I kind of think it's like not sustainable. And I kind of think like the research and also just like general vibes would align with that, right? So like
Yeah.
if you use primarily you getting mad at yourself to motivate yourself to do better, I think you could stand to find like other ways to get motivated. And like I will totally admit that sometimes, and like usually I'm doing it in jest a little bit, but it like helps, is like if I'm not committing to a move, I might say something out loud, and I do generally am laughing at
Like,
myself a little bit because I'll be like,
do it,
stop being a
you
little
bitch.
bitch. Yeah, like do it. Like stop being a
Yeah.
little weenie. Like you're gonna be fine. Just fucking do it. And like
Yeah.
then I like get myself to do it, and I'm a little
That's
irritated with
different.
myself. But that feels
Yeah.
like good, and also I think like the humor in it like helps me like get out of my
Yeah.
head, and just like me laughing at myself not committing even though it's like perfectly safe or yada yada, like I
Right,
think
right,
that
right.
like helps. But that's very different. I just think like if you constantly using like throw your shoes at the wall anger to motivate you to try hard always, I think that might get a little bit unsustainable. And I think you trying to
Mhm.
find some like other ways to like hype yourself up could be healthy. They don't
Well,
actually, in this psychological capital categorization that we talked about in the study, they don't actually use being a dick to yourself as a metric for success. It turns
yeah.
out. So
Turns out. Well,
turns
like,
out,
but I
yeah.
think it's like there's two sides of the same coin, right? It's like you have anger that's like, oh, okay, I can do this. Like, this is possible. I'm so mad. Versus like, I'm so embarrassed that I can't do this. Like, you're gonna react so differently in each of those situations.
Right. Or just being like, I'm so shitty, and like
Yeah, like,
leaning into the like self pity of being pissed at yourself type of thing.
yeah.
Like
Right, right.
that's,
Like,
yeah.
you can get mad and like get to work versus like get mad and throw your shoes at the wall in like shame for not doing a
Yes.
thing. Like that,
Correct.
those are very different reactions. So like perhaps that's something to think about when you're leaking your energy. It's just falling out of your ear holes.
Yeah. It's just like, yeah, exactly. Like that's exactly correct. Okay.
So the next one that is a common psychological energy leak is identity pressure, the I should statements. So like training to uphold an identity, like, oh, I should go to the gym because if I don't, I won't look like a climber, or I won't feel like a climber, or people won't perceive me to be one. And maybe it's like a fear of like losing your momentum, maybe it's a fear of losing status. And that chronic background stress, I think even on rest days can really take its toll too, cuz like if you're sitting there on your rest day like I should be resting, but I should also be at the gym because I don't want to look like a weenie and
Yeah.
I want to look like a climber or whatever. I think
Right.
that can really like that can put you in a moment of like feeling pressured to like continue going to the gym, to not take rest days, to get into some like really tricky behaviors around performance, but also just like that identity around your athleticism. I'm sure you see this a lot, Lauren, like with
Oh, yeah.
clients.
Oh, saw it with myself yesterday. So like I said, I have like a little bit of a head cold and I know that training while I have active symptoms is like not a good plan. And usually on like the
Yeah.
first couple days I'm like this is smart. I'm being a smart athlete. But by the third day of feeling like I'm in movement jail, I'm like, I'm so bored. I'm so sad. I'm so dramatic.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this little dramatic loopy thing, right, that I'm doing is like not restful. This is
What
stupid.
I've been doing
But
that
like,
too. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna lose my gains. I'm gonna lose my momentum. Blah blah blah. And I'm like,
I'm
no, bitch,
supposed to
you're
be doing
sick.
this and I'm going to be like behind. And it's like, no, you're going to be
Right.
more behind if you try to train hard while you're sick,
Right.
idiot girl. So yeah, yeah, it's not
Yeah.
it's a thing.
Yeah. I think this
Absolutely.
one feels like the most silly to me because it's like, yeah, we probably always could say this like in jest, but we probably all do it to some
Oh,
degree.
absolutely. And this is definitely something that I will be touching on in our how to fix it section. So if you're like, how do I stop that shit? Don't worry. We're going to cover it. Okay. One I want to add to our list is just like having excessive cognitive load in general. So
Mm.
things where like if your to-do list lives in your head, like if you if you're like I need to do that thing, I need to do that thing, I need to do that thing and that's happening in your brain all the time all day like related to climbing or not, that's a waste of energy. You should like just write that shit down somewhere and then stop doing that. It's
Yep.
not a good time. Or like also just excessive cognitive load about like what goals you have in climbing or what you're supposed to be
Ooh.
working on. Like
Yeah.
I will tell you that okay. I sent this out to my newsletter and maybe I'll like link it below, but I have created just the silliest and most fun random gauntlet of like physical goals I want to achieve this year. And I will tell you because they were all like things that I was like, I really just want to like be able to do that. I want to be able to do that, blah, blah, blah. And like having all of these ideas floating around in my head all of January was just like stressing me out. And I was like, you know what's going to just make me feel a lot more focused and normal is writing out what I want to do in an organized way, how I'm going to do it, and like what order of importance they are to me. And I will tell you, it's been so much easier to get my ass to train and like feel focused and not be like having my sessions feel like they're like I'm like, oh, but I should do this. Blah, 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 blah. Like I feel so much less noise around that now
Yeah.
that I actually have like a written down game plan that I can like look at and check in with. And I've seen that
Right.
happen with so many clients. Like there's so many people that are like very motivated and get stuff done, but they just kind of feel like purposeless and like they're like floating all over the place and it really stresses them out. And like honestly, what I'm just doing is I'm like taking their energy to get shit done and I'm just like, we're just gonna like focus this and then they're like wow I feel way less stressed out and like I can like actually execute and make progress towards the things that I care about. And I think having a game plan and like knowing what you are working on and what you are not working on can help eliminate a lot of that cognitive load like mid session. Because we've all had it happen where we like come across like a move on a climb and we're like, oh my God, I should really spend 3 months just working on dynos. And it's like, maybe you should, but maybe that's not what we're doing right now because we're already in the middle of like not
Right.
doing that. So, like, yeah, anyway, I think,
Well, I've even seen this like this is such a good example because I feel like in nutrition this happens all the time
oh, there's
because
a
there's
million things I'm sure you could work on. Well, there's always a million things you could work on, but
but
like,
that's
yeah,
half the battle, right? It's like people are like, "Oh my god, I want my like end goal is to do like my end goal is to what
eat
am
10
I
servings of vegetables a day, drink all the
or
water I need, and like only have grass fed meats. Like, I
a
don't know.
big one I've been hearing recently. I've had several folks who are working on like blood glucose regulation for one reason or another. And a lot of the common theme there is they're like, okay, I want to tackle this. What could I do? And I'm like, okay, well, let's start with like really small basic things that don't actually feel like you're adding this like whole overhaul to your day. I don't want it to feel like stressful when somebody adds something, so I try to keep it like really almost like basic in a way that it can feel like it tackles multiple things in their life because the cognitive load of being like, oh well, I can't do this or I have to do that or but like list that all, that is such background noise that I'm like, I just let's abandon that like almost diet culture noise of having to do XYZ and like focusing on rules that maybe are like not serving us.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So, Caitlin, like all of these things are basically like psychological energy leaks that are like not helping. But can you just sort of reiterate why physiologically these like how a ruminate, how can a rumination loop like materially impact our training session, like in a physiological
Yeah.
response type of way?
Yeah. This can all of these things can make you feel physically tired for there are a few mechanisms that are happening here. And the first one is, of course, with cortisol, a major stress hormone in the body. It doesn't work on its own, of course, but cortisol is kind of the big one that you are probably all familiar with, and it diverts the energy from your muscles. And this is like working muscles, but also into like the repair. So like we're trying to get strong and build adaptations. And if you're having this like psychological leak happening in the background, this heightened cortisol can divert that energy from muscle, from tissue that's trying to repair itself. So that's a huge one. The other one is additional stress hormones and the whole orchestra of your hormone endocrine system. It can impair glycogen replenishment. So if
Oh my
you're
God.
like, yeah, that one's kind of like a womp womp. So if you're, let's say, like you're already stressed, you're not repairing your muscles well because you're stressed, and maybe you're eating enough, maybe you're not, which is another whole issue because you're if you're stressed. But that glycogen storage isn't necessarily happening, so it can be kind of like diminished. So you won't have that extra energy to
Energy from
pull
the
from
food that you
later.
used. Oh my God.
Yes. You might also experience more muscle tension, which then also increases your energy cost of movement. Like you might feel more tired because of that. And then also, and lastly, but maybe I want to say maybe more importantly, your breathing becomes shallower. And that means you have
That'll make you
less
more
oxygen
pumped.
efficiency. Yeah, more pumped. Like you're just going to feel all around worse. And if these things are affecting you in your actual session, you're going to feel noticeably more physically tired for sure.
Yeah. So that's bad. And so that's
Bad.
why, yeah,
That's
you
when you
being
go
in a rough mood
to
is like actually materially impacting you.
energy leak jail. But
Energy leak jail.
Have no
Mm-hmm.
fear. We're going to talk about how to plug these leaks. And I want to give a
Yes.
few practical
Flex
tools.
seal. I'm gonna say that
Flex
every time.
seal.
Flex
Oh my
seal.
God.
Yeah, I love it. We're
Yes.
never
And
not gonna
slap
do
those
that.
patches on.
That's why you want to watch the YouTube, because you're watching me make the flex seal movement like it's like a bit. Anyways, you know what I'm fucking talking about. You know what I'm talking about.
Anyways.
Flex seal guy. Okay. Anyways, so that's what we're gonna do. All
Okay.
right.
So first, the very first way that we're going to flex seal this leak is bring awareness to these psychological leaks without judgment. And if you're sitting there going like,
Yeah.
yeah,
But
yeah,
I
yeah,
love
Caitlin, I
judging.
hear you. I love judging. It's so fun. I
Same. That's why we
love
watch
being
reality TV. Do that for your judging energy, and then don't do
get
it
that
to your.
judging energy out. Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm. So I want you to notice these mental loops without trying to fix them. Don't go in right away with your toolkit and be like, okay, aha, I see you. I'm gonna fix you. Because you might you might just get more overwhelmed by that
Yeah. Just
process.
notice.
Um, I think labeling these thoughts and bringing awareness to them, being like, wow, I had a really stressful day at work today, or my kid cried all day and it was awful. If you can label that and bring awareness to it, that can help you
Big
have
money.
a lessened physiological response. So it might be good practice to say something like, this is this is a stressful day. It's just, it is what it is. Or this is rumination, I'm overthinking, it's not a problem.
Yeah.
This is something too that I will say I have talked to my therapist about, because I've had some of these like inner critic things really come up as a trauma response, and that's something that I certainly am not saying like, oh, work through it easily, it's no problem, don't judge yourself. That's something that I'd say is more of a serious issue, that like having a trained professional who
Totally.
can kind of like walk you through maybe your own like practice sayings, practice mantras, if you will, affirmations can be
Absolutely.
helpful. But I do think there's something to be said about just being aware of what you're experiencing, and maybe labeling like the why behind the what could be helpful.
Yeah. So the bonus tip I'm going to add on to this, and this is one of the like, I would say one of the most popular things that I do inside of my like one-on-one coaching. Because like my one-on-one coaching, we set a goal and are like 5 areas, and one of those areas is mental. And for some of my clients that feel like they're very distracted by like self criticism or like prejudging how well they're going to do on a climb, just like some of these loops that I like identify in talking to them, we make our goal to be able to practice the skill of cognitive defusion. So let
Ooh.
me explain what that is, because it's very similar to things Caitlin has already touched on. So basically, cognitive fusion is when we become fused with an idea about ourselves, or maybe like
Mm.
like something like, I'm bad at slab climbing, or like I'll never be able to do whatever, or like I don't like to train when I'm supposed to because I'm lazy, or like maybe it's things that are more like just day to day, like if we're like had a really shitty day and we're just like, this session's going to be terrible because today is terrible, right? Like something like that. So, cognitive defusion is how we separate ourselves from those thoughts. And there's a few different techniques for it. I'll highlight a couple of them. And then I have like a whole video about cognitive
Oh,
defusion
sick.
techniques that I will link you all to. But, like, for example, one of them that I think is really silly, but I also think it helps me when I just need like a laugh. So, I have a name for my mean brain. My mean brain, the like part of my brain that's like a real asshole to me sometimes when I'm like really just going through it, I call that version of my brain Laurel. So if I'm like, wow, you didn't do enough today, I'm like, wow, Laurel, way to be a bitch. Like that's really like, I don't need that, Laurel. Like, and I like naming your brain, or just being like my brain. Right. So like that's one way to do it, which like some of you might be like, that's too silly, I can't do it. But sometimes if you need a laugh, that can be great, because it kind of helps you set like, basically the idea is you got to separate yourself
Yeah.
from like the thought. The
Defuse.
other one is like just kind of labeling it, kind of like you said, like being like, instead of like doing whatever, you can just be like, oh, my brain is giving me the thought that this is happening. And then like the secondary part of that is like questioning, like, is that true? Or like, does that make sense? And a lot of times, like this stuff, this crazy shit that we think about ourselves, like it can't be proven in court. Like truly, if you tried to put it in a peer-reviewed research paper, someone would be like, that is way too subjective. That is not measurable. That's just like in a rational way, that is not true. And then we can kind of like dissect that. So those are like a couple of techniques, but like cognitive defusion, I think is like if you are someone that's like, oh my God, I like get myself into these horrible loops where my brain is just like spitting out really unhelpful
Bunch
thoughts
of
at a million miles an
garbage.
hour, just being like, my process goal is practice a cognitive defusion technique or practice like a labeling or awareness technique one time every day is my like process goal, and just make it a check. You don't have to do it with every thought. It's not going to happen. But like I've seen this work with clients where like this is our goal. And I swear to God, like 12 weeks later, 6 months later, they're like, holy shit, my whole ability to be optimistic or like not have my brain's crazy thoughts be running the show is just completely transformed. And it's been really cool to see because I've seen it within myself and I've seen it with like a lot of clients. And it's like pretty badass what you can do with just being like, I'm just going to try to practice this skill a little bit every day. And it just gets easier and easier. Not always, because sometimes we're really in it, but like
Yeah,
it truly is like a mental skill, and if you practice it, it gets better. So that would be my like,
I love that.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's like a big one. I would say
I
it's like my
wonder what
biggest.
my mean brain would be.
Kelly,
Carla.
Carla,
Kelly. Carla.
Kelly. Oh my god.
No, but I love Kelly Lutz, so we can't.
Oh no, we can't. You're right. That's a great point. We can't do that. Okay, yeah. Hmm. We'll have
That'll
to
be a
circle
thought
back to
for
that.
another day.
Yeah.
Um
Okay.
okay,
Other ways to plug the leaks. What
next,
else you got, Caitlin?
another way to plug the leak, and this is one that I've been doing recently that I no lie, I thought this was so crazy because in one of my contracts I was doing slides for like energy medicine and um just like the different tactics and techniques and kind of like the approach of it. And some of it is a little bit woo woo, but some of the research in energy medicine is bananas. So there was one that I was like, oh, cool, tapping, like literally like tapping parts of your body. And my therapist that week, without even saying anything about this, like contract work, she was like, have you ever heard of tapping? And I was like, oh shit, here we go. This is when worlds collide. And
You're
we
like,
literally
okay, I
did
get it.
like,
I should do it.
yeah, like we did 10 minutes of tapping. She showed me this video of like different parts of your body you're supposed to tap to kind of like do this nervous system regulation. So I'll share some links to this
Okay,
because
sweet.
I thought it was so cool. But you can use it during like times of frustration, anger, maybe if you're comparing yourself to others, maybe if you are feeling fear. Like you might feel like you're a crazy person being on a rope, like tapping different parts of your body when you're afraid. But I do think this works. Like my favorite one that my therapist showed me was like you tap the sides of your ribs, basically, like not quite under your armpit, but like both sides at once. And she was like, yeah, if it like is kind of sore, like maybe you've been experiencing like a lot of anger recently. And I was like, oh shit, that's always sore. I mean, but so but today I'm like, oh nice, but I haven't been working out. So who knows? But anyway, I really
Yeah.
liked it, like tapping, like different parts. Like
Yeah.
it like refocuses your brain's attention on this like different part of your body
I
that can
love
help
that.
like break up
I've
the
heard
junk.
great things
So
about tapping. Maybe I got to give it a whirl. Yeah.
yeah, tapping is like an underrated tool that I think is pretty neat. So anyway, I loved that one.
Hell yeah. Okay. What else you got, Caitlin?
Okay. The next one, these are what I'd call somatic resets mid session. And this might be like bringing more awareness to your breathing cadence. This could be between attempts. This could be while you're like moving on between different parts of your session if you're training different things. This could also be, I literally am doing this right now, dropping your shoulders and unclenching your jaw, which I'm like, whoa, like
She's
okay,
always
get it
clenched
together.
that jaw of mine.
Yes, and then shaking out your hands intentionally, like really, really bringing awareness to
Ooh,
that and like
loosey
just doing this
goosey.
loosey goosey somatic reset. So I think these things can be
Ah,
helpful. Like I'll do deep breathing in between client sessions, I'll do deep breathing in between like different parts of my workday. And I do think there's a lot to be said about this, like taking your brain out of that moment and helping push you into that next moment without the like spirals.
yeah. Yeah, totally. I think like one thing that I would say that I've also like added as like a mental tool into my clients' toolkits is like having a pre-climbing session or pre-attempt performance ritual. And this doesn't have to be anything crazy. Like your pre-session ritual could be like you play a specific song in your car, you take 10 deep breaths, and then you just like close your eyes and imagine walking out of the gym in a good mood, and it takes like a minute but you did it. And like, so usually, or like pre-performance ritual could be, usually
Mm.
my recommendation is like a little bit of like rehearsal of what you're about to do somehow, and then something that connects your brain to your body, so like tapping or like one single action, like dip your hands in your chalk bag and then like slap your hands.
Oh
There's,
yeah.
yeah, like just like little things
Yeah,
like that,
yeah.
like just having something that's like a, yeah, it really feels like this whole like tapping somatic resets, like just things that connect your breath to your brain to your body and where you are right now, and like mindfulness techniques in general can be really helpful. But like I think where people kind of like what we talked about with like the Headspace app or whatever, it can be really easy to get hung up on being like, oh, I can't like start doing any of this like unless I like make it a whole thing and blah blah blah. But like if you just are like, I take 3 deep breaths before I like pull on the wall for a flash attempt. Like start with something that feels so small and stupid that you
Totally.
can't not do it. Like
Right.
plain and
Yeah.
simple.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be
So
like a whole uh
no.
a whole thing. It can be
If the
quite
idea of
simplified.
what if like whatever you're picking from this episode kind of stresses you out, pick something easier
Choose other.
or make it more chill.
Yeah.
Like until you're
Yeah.
like, that doesn't stress me out. Like the idea of doing that regularly doesn't make me
Right.
feel stressed. So yeah. Okay. I think the last one we want to talk about is just like reducing cognitive load. And I touched on this earlier, but like ways to reduce cognitive load. Okay, one, having like a plan or like recognizable priorities in your training. If you are trying to train, if you're like, I'm really just trying to have fun and I don't care, then that's totally fine. But also, if you're trying to have fun and not caring, but then your brain keeps being like, but I want to work on this, but I want to get better at this, blah, 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 blah. Maybe you actually would, it'd be better if you like let yourself have a couple of priorities so that you could stop that noise, right? So just something to think about.
Right.
Couple of other things that I like will have clients do, especially if like figuring out when they're going to get their training done or like all of that feels stressful, or they feel like they're like deciding what training they're going to do every single day and it just feels like mentally exhausting. Having some kind of like little mini weekly planning ritual to like set out when you're going to do your sessions. And especially if like
Yeah.
you're working on outdoor climbing or things that depend on like outdoor sports, like when it's climbing season, my weekly planning ritual is like check the weather, text friends about plans, wait a little bit until they respond, proceed to
Yeah.
make plan, right? Like that's, and but I have that like written out so that I can just like do it. Um Another, I'm just going to link you all to this so this episode doesn't get too long, but like having a red, I call it like red, yellow, green system for your weeks of climbing. So one activity I'll give people a lot is if they're like experiencing a lot of stress and they're like, I feel like I can't get my training done. I'm like, you need a pre-plan for how much training you expect yourself to do on a week that's like really tough, on a week that's like medium, and on a week that's like
Yeah.
chill. Another thing I just briefly introduced for like clients when it comes to annual planning is going through your year and just giving it like how stressful your month is, like overall life wise, or if you have a bunch of travel or whatever, like giving it a red, yellow, or green ranking, and then
I
using
love
that
that.
to decide when your performance seasons might be. Like if
Mm.
it's like a red month but the weather's great, is that necessarily the best month to try to be performing, or should you
That's
maybe
so
try to
real.
have a performance period where the weather's like medium but you actually have time to get outside a lot, right? So just like other thing to think about. And the last tip I will give you is if you were like, oh, I have little to-dos running around in my brain all day, you need somewhere to capture all of your little to-dos. I have a note in my phone called dump basket, um, where it's just like all anything I remember that I need to do, no matter if it's for work or personal or whatever, it just goes in there and I like put it in its proper place later. But anytime I
Yeah.
think of something that I need to do, I just put it in there so it's not like floating around in my brain all the time. And I can tell when I'm getting overwhelmed when I haven't taken a second to like do that. So that's just a general tip. That's not necessarily
I
climbing
love
related,
that.
but again, your mental
Life skill.
fatigue, life skill. So,
Dump
so that's what I
basket. Okay.
got. Yeah, reduce your cognitive overload.
Yeah, that's so smart. I feel like you're
Write shit
really good at yeah,
down.
like you do this really good thing where you like are really good at compartmentalizing is not the right word, but you're really good at like organizing
Yeah,
your like
organizing will set you
life.
free.
Yeah. Yeah, you are the Marie Kondo of the climbing training world.
Oh my gosh, that is such an honor. It is my cross to bear and I will bear it with pride. Thank you. Oh my god, I feel like I was
Good.
just knighted.
You are
Um
highlighter night.
thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Oh my god, amazing. Okay.
Ah,
All right. Anything
okay.
else? That's yeah. So hopefully you
Um
don't feel cognitively overloaded by all the ideas we just gave you. But you might.
yeah, for
That's
sure.
okay.
I think the last little thing I just want to say, because I think with training, but also like maybe think of this as like overall like your global energy, your person energy. I think
Totally.
how you feel when you like show up to work, when you show up to the gym, when you show up to a climb, show up to an event, whatever it is, your mental state can really affect how present you are.
Everything.
It can certainly affect like your like a big one is and I've heard this from you so many times, like your RPE is subjective every other day, like maybe a 70% today looks way heckin' different than it did last week. And I think just being able to be aware of how you're entering different things in your life is going to literally set you free, but also help you slap on some energy leak
Yeah, Flex
support.
Seal. Because like honestly, when I think about this episode and this whole series, if this one hit you really hard and you're like, I actually don't know if I need more ideas, I could just like let this simmer for like a month and
Yeah.
work on these things. Like start here because if you're like dysregulated and stressed out, trying to implement other changes is just going to be way harder. Like
Right.
trying to implement some of the things that we're going to talk about in terms of like nutrition, in terms of like the way to organize your training, all these things. Like if you don't have the mental energy to do that, which you do need to eat food to have the mental energy to do that. So perhaps not
Right.
the nutrition part, but like if you don't have like a foundation of like some mental stability and
Yeah.
like
These other
mental
things are
availability
gonna
for problem solving, the other stuff's going to be like too much. You have to like start here.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's why we started
You
with this one as episode 2.
yeah. Like the thought that comes to mind is you don't need more motivation, you need less internal friction. That's
Yeah.
that's
Oh,
probably a big one.
bars. Dropping hammers there, Caitlin Holmes. Shit. Okay. So to wrap this up, here here's what we want you to do. We want you to think about this whole fucking shit that we just talked about, and we want you to just think about like which mental energy link is like costing you the most energy. Just like consider that, and then maybe you're gonna try one regulation tool this week, and maybe you're gonna send this episode to a homie that
You're
you
like, "Hey,
could
homie."
potentially do this with.
Yeah, there you
Because
go.
and this recommendation is twofold. One, accountability buddies is good, and two, we do like want this podcast to reach more people. It does help us on a personal level, and on a
Help us
so
not
if that'd be nice if
psychologically
this
leak.
yeah, if it would help us if you also shared this with someone. So like it's a win-win really. So like send this to a friend. Um that maybe and you guys can flex seal your leaks together like it's craft night for your brain. How nice. Beautiful. Okay, Caitlin,
Absolutely.
anything you want to remind the people about before we wrap this one up?
Well, if you're like, okay, I hear you, I hear all of this, I still think nutrition is where my energy leak is happening. Let's book a call. We'll chat about you and what's going on. We'll see if I'm the right fit for you. But
Love it.
otherwise, yeah, that's it. What about you, Lauren?
Okay, as far as I go, enrolling one-on-one clients actively, I have like a few spaces left for the spring. So if you want to work with
Ooh,
me and you're like, ooh, this whole Lauren helps me set a mental skills goal and then holds me accountable and then my brain is nicer to me,
amazing.
thing sounds neato, then yeah, that's like a thing we would work on because obviously it is important to how well you climb, and also I do want you to be like a happy fulfilled person, it turns out. So yeah, that's like important to me as a coach as well. Other things going on: crew enrollment will be opening again mid-March for our spring 12-week crew cohort. And yeah, like obviously my whole ethos about this like runs through my whole coaching style. So if you're like, I am vibing with this is a vibe I could train to, then you should consider joining the crew. And I'll put some information about all of that in the show notes. Yeah. So
Nice.
sick. Okay, well, I think we can wrap it up there. Lots for all of you to ponder. And stay tuned
For
for
sure.
next week, just a little bit. So stay tuned. We'll be back next week where we're going to talk about physiological energy leaks. We're going to talk about more of the physical stuff. Let's get physical. Physical. You're welcome for that. Yeah, you just saw me dancing really good. Do
Really
not
good
roast
like.
me on YouTube or we will stop sharing it. Okay. So, anyways,
Truly.
beautiful. All right. Well, until next time, everyone, keep
Keep
it
it average.
average.